Hello, I'm Dennis. I'm the English pastor at Vinewood CFC.
And I'm Chris. I'm the English minister at Vinewood CFC Berkeley.
And we want to invite you, or not invite you, but welcome you to our podcast, Heard It Through the Grapevine, where we hope to encourage you in your faith and knowledge of God by giving you biblical and theological clarity to your questions about life and faith. And this week, we have invited Pastor Andrew from Christ Church. Thank you for joining us. And most of you, or maybe some of you, would recognize him because he was our guest speaker at our very first young adult retreat.
Right.
About a couple months right before the whole pandemic started. But yeah, Andrew, thank you for coming on. Why don't you spend a couple of moments introducing yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Great to be here. Had a great time with everyone at the retreat, and happy to spend some more time with my CFC friends and family. Again, Andrew here. I'm a minister, or I'm on the pastoral staff at Christ Church East Bay, which is a congregation in Berkeley. We're on Cedar and Walnut, not far from the original Pete's Coffee. Chinese American, third generation, grew up here in the Bay. My parents went to Cal. Yeah, love the Bay and hoping to stay and live here and minister here for a long time. I'm married with 2 children, a 20-month-old and a 3-month-old, Cami and Leia.
Nice.
And loving that this season of our life. And yeah, I grew up in the Bay, and I left in 2005 for school, and I didn't come back until 2018. So I've been gone for 13 years. I think Facebook was maybe 2 or 3 years old when I left the Bay, and it's been amazing how it's changed, but glad to be back and minister in this very new and evolving context, especially in times like these.
And I met Andrew when you were in college, right? I think you were at UC
That's
Irvine.
right.
I was interning at a church in the Bay Area Chinese Bible Church, and that's where I met Andrew. And you recently defended your dissertation, right? Not that long ago?
That's right. Back in November, I defended it and I passed, so I can get that. That's behind me in my life now. Really
So we should actually all be calling you Dr. Ong.
No, please don't.
But thank you so much for joining us and helping us this episode. But before we get started, I just kind of want to throw out, just kind of see what are y'all up to this summer? Anything you're looking forward to? We're, I guess, maybe a couple of weeks into summer. Any plans?
Yeah. Well, it's been a busy summer, as I'm sure it has been for you guys pastorally. And 2 of our pastors are on sabbatical, and we lost 2 of our pastors who went away to other ministry positions in December. So, yeah, it's been a busy time just shepherding 2 locations. So just looking forward to getting some time away. I think my family is going to spend some time in Mill Valley and then some time in Tahoe, July and August. That's kind of how you have to have vacation right now.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. But
get as far away get as far away from everybody else. Oh, you, Chris? Any plans?
No plans. We're not looking forward to very much. It's sad. It's really sad. Tamai's going back to work soon. Tamai's my wife. She's a preschool teacher, and so yeah, wow. She's starting work next week, and so that limits the vacation options that we have, along with shelter in place. And so she's been working from home, doing Zoom calls with preschoolers since shelter in place, and now she's asked to go back into work. And so really what that means is I get to take care of Hannah. Am I looking forward to it? Yes. But I just have to be a little more creative with how what we do and where we go. And so we'll see what happens. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens with us as well. We're definitely very touch and go. So maybe if things get better, it's really hard, right? Maybe we'll try to go down to LA and visit some family. We have my wife's sister lives in LA, and she has kids, and all the cousins will get together, or my kids and her kids, and they have a pool, so maybe we'll try to shelter a place there. We'll see how it goes. The beauty of being able to visit family is we don't have to make our decision until like 7 hours before, right? Because about 6-7 hours is how long it takes to drive there. It's like, all right, we're coming down. But I am also looking forward to Hamilton coming out on Disney Plus, so we don't have to be going places. So that'd be kind of fun. Yeah. So today we have Pastor Andrew here as we are trying to answer some of your questions. And one of the questions that we received, and this was probably very early on when Shelter in Place started. And obviously, ever since then, there are so many things that happen. So this question can really be answered in a lot of different facets. But very generally, how do we continue to fulfill the Great Commission in evangelism during this time of sheltering in place? And I think that's a great question because it is a reminder that during this time of pandemic, or even right now, a time of civil unrest that's just continually reminded, or a time of racial tensions, whether it is with Asian Americans or Asians in results or in regards to COVID-19, or with our Black friends and neighbors in regards to what we've been talking about that a lot already on this podcast in regards to George Floyd, and even beyond that, just the relationship between just the different races and things like that. So this can go a number of different ways, but we just kind of want to throw that out essentially. Well, how do we fulfill the Great Commission during this essentially very crazy time, all kind of distilled into like 2-3 months? So I'm just going to go ahead and throw it to Andrew, our guest, and just give you first shot at it. And
yeah, thanks. Well, I appreciate the question, and I think it demonstrates a heart that's wanting to follow Jesus, and really want to affirm whoever asked this question. I think asking the question is a great place to start, and I think you are being a disciple of Jesus by asking that question. So great stuff there. Where I would start is with the Great Commission itself, remembering that all authority in heaven and on earth have been given to Jesus. I think there's a part of us that feels like, what should I be doing? How can I make things better? But a huge part of the Great Commission is remembering that all authority, all power is in the hands of Jesus, and you are his instrument, and it's good that you're pursuing these things. But remember, this is Jesus's mission. This is Jesus's mission to fulfill. So that's one. Number two, I would say, is I think, and I hear in the question more of an emphasis on evangelism, which I will address. But I also want to just talk about the main point of the Great Commission is discipleship, right? That's the primary thing. Let's go and make disciples of the nations, make disciples. And discipleship is multidimensional, and evangelism is surely a huge part of it. At Christ Church, we like to talk about a 3-dimensional discipleship life. So we talk about an up, an in, and an out. We talk about your upward vertical relationship with God, your inward communal relationship with the people of God, and then we talk about your out, your missional purpose, which is evangelism, but also what am I called to do vocationally in my life, in my career, as a father, husband, friend, child. What am I here to do? Up, in, and out. And I'd encourage people wanting to fulfill the Great Commission to pay attention to all 3 aspects. So part of being on mission and engaging in this Great Commission is making sure you have a strong up, and COVID-19 shelter in place is a great time to reassess and change your rhythms. I mean, your rhythms have already been changed. Here's a nice time to transition and really examine, have I am I satisfied with my up life? How are my spiritual disciplines? How is my spiritual formation? Am I spending time in the Word, in prayer, fasting, giving, things like that? Also, I have found that shelter in place has been a time to reconnect inwardly with people in ways that I hadn't before. I started a discipleship huddle because of this, knowing that people are more flexible with their time. Oh, they're working, but I can get away at sometime during the day for an hour to to get together and pray and read the Bible together. So that's something that I've been doing upwards and inwardly. And then before I talk about evangelism, I think another component of what we're talking about when we're talking about discipleship, Jesus also says, make disciples of the nations, teaching them to do everything I've commanded you. Again, so that's also part of the Great Commission. And what is this everything that he's commanded us to do? Well, it's a whole lot. You can look to the Sermon on the Mount. You can look to all 4 Gospels. But perhaps most simply, you could look to the greatest commandment and the next greatest commandment, to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think I just talked about, how we grow closer to God. So I'd also want to talk about how are we loving our neighbors as ourselves in this particular cultural moment, where our Black friends, family, and neighbors are suffering, where there's increasing tribalism, where there is just real pain and hurt around the effects of this pandemic. That is also a part of the Great Commission. Being a disciple of Jesus, following Jesus, is taking time to reflect on these things, to study these things, and to act. So at Christ Church, we've been encouraging people to pray, to give, to fast, to listen, and to repent. And really, it's just being a Christian. So I know that's kind of broad, but I did want to bring it back to that in terms of what it means to make disciples in this season. Is to pursue all these things in the way of Jesus. But when it comes to evangelism, the out portion of our role as discipleships, what I would say is, again, this is a huge, pivotal, transitional moment for everyone. And it's disruptive, but also creates opportunities. It creates a very, very good excuse to open up new possibilities and to reconnect with or make new friends. So, I mean, a easy template of what kind of how my evangelistic life has looked in this season of shelter in place is I feel like I have more reason now to text that friend that's kind of been on my mind for a while, but I didn't have a really organic way of, reaching out to them and say, hey, can I talk to you about Jesus? But now I have an in, like, hey, I just been thinking about you in this crazy season. How are you doing? And rebuilding, reestablishing relationships in that way. I have a friend from high school that we've just gotten in contact with, and I found out that he just had a baby, and we'd had conversations about faith before, and now I just feel like this has opened up a new way, a new chance to reconnect. So that's one thing I talk about evangelism and how we do that during pandemic. Yeah, maybe I'll stop there. And yeah.
No, I really appreciate it. I think you shared a lot of amazing things. I think one of the first things that really hit me was when you mentioned, as we refocus our minds and hearts on the Great Commission, is one, the all authority has been given to Jesus. And I think especially during a time like this, it can feel very, very troubling because of just so much uncertainty. Even when we talk about things like our summer plans, we're so uncertain. I think all of us are longing and hoping for a better tomorrow, literally, that we can maybe, I think some of us just want things to be what was before. And they're like, that was good enough, right? Let's just go back to that. And I think in a time of real uncertainty, not just this like nebulous, vague one where it's just like, I wish life was this for all of us. It is a great reminder that Jesus is the one with all authority and power and strength. And we as believers can really gain great hope in that, that he's the one that's currently ruling and reigning. I think it's also a great reminder. Yeah, this is not our commission, is Jesus's commission. We're just hopping onto what he's doing and what does it look like for us to be faithful in that regards. I know that for us right now, it's been crazy. Things are disrupted, but have a really good point. Like, we have opportunities that we haven't had before to be able to reach out to a friend that maybe we haven't talked to in a while, just to like shoot, like, hey, how are you doing? Like, I've been able to connect with some people that we just don't normally connect as often, not because we're not friends or anything, but it's just, we might not live in the same place, and it was just good to be able to, hey, let's just all Zoom, because I know everybody's on Zoom now, but it'd be great to be able to just catch up, or things like that. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities. One of the members in my small group, she is attending a virtual missions trip. So normally, which is kind of cool, because normally they go to Taiwan every summer to do missions and stuff like that. But now they obviously can't go. They're going to do something virtually. And I think there's just a lot of creativity that could be put there as well. But I do think that's important, right? Like, during especially a time like this, it's very easy to be inward focused in terms of what's going to be best for my life, or how can I adjust to make life easier for me. And I like, just kind of like what you mentioned, challenging the church, like how you've been challenging Christ Church to be outwardly focused as well, to really consider how, to spend that time really maybe praying or lamenting, or considering the other person, or fasting, tithing, giving, etc. Which has been really good, because our church we've been going through the Sermon on the Mount, and I feel like one of the big challenges that keep on coming up time and time again for me personally, as we've been going through the Sermon on the Mount, is prayer. Is that time of prayer and praying. And as I was reflecting, just in my time here at CFC Berkeley, we started by studying Habakkuk, which is about lament, which is so appropriate now. Like, we just picked it out of the blue. We're like, why not? And it's such an appropriate time. And I was like, man, Lord, I feel like you've really been calling me, and even as our church, for a time of really focused prayer, right? We went through Habakkuk on lament. We went through a sabbatical series on what does it mean to rest in him. And now, as we are in Matthew in the Sermon on the Mount, it's just been a good reminder. It's been a really good reminder for what we should be focused on and what we should be doing. But I don't know, Chris, what are some of your thoughts about this topic at hand?
Yeah. Andrew, I really like your emphasis on discipleship. I think so often we use the word evangelism a lot, but actually that's I don't call it secondary to that of discipleship. But the Great Commission doesn't mention evangelism. It's a means by which we accomplish the Great Commission. But I think ultimately the end goal is to raise up followers of Jesus Christ, not just simply tell them the gospel. And so what that means, I think we're so used to this style, and I think it's right, and the way that God had intended, where we're face-to-face, one-on-one with individuals and seeing them come to Christ, and teaching them, right, day to day and slowly. But we're just, like I said, we're faced with the kind of the confines of our own home, and just kind of going out quickly, grabbing what we need and coming back, the essentials. But I think, maybe this conversation would have been different maybe a couple months ago, where we just couldn't go out. Whereas now things are easing up a little bit, right? Is COVID-19 still out there? Yes, but the restrictions are easing up, which gives you a little more opportunity. And the thing that comes to mind when I hear this question of Great Commission and evangelism is it's time to take a little bit more risk. I think we've been, as Christians, we've been surrounded around this idea of fear. And I know early on, a lot of, there was two sides of this when it comes to church, like, don't give in to fear. And then the other side's like, well, we want to love our neighbors. And at times it seems like we're giving in to fear by just closing church down and staying in the shelter. Well, now I think we're coming to the consensus of maybe we can take a little bit more risk, right? Things are easing up. There are precautions that we can take, whether it's wearing masks, wearing gloves. But the thing that comes to mind, like I said, is take more risks, whether it's online or actually in person. When you're allowed to go to the parks, right, and walk around a little bit now. Well, it's as simple as saying hello from 6 feet away, right, and asking strangers how they're doing. And I think as much as my thing just fell down, but as much as we say. That's like one of the, whatever you call it, those worship movies, or like worship things where the drum shield comes down or the cross falls down or anything. But anyways, This thing keeps falling. But yeah, just going out. I think another thing that comes to mind is as there is kind of your Black brothers and sisters in Christ, but also there's the consistent of the poor, right? That exists. I think, and that's not to say that there's ethnicity when it comes to the poor. There are a large amount of people that are poor in our society, especially in Berkeley, right, and the Oakland area. And I think now's the time that we can support, especially our local missions organizations, right, that take care of the poor, the homeless, those that are in need of food and shelter, and even PPE. And what comes to mind when it comes to the Great Commission and evangelism is the means in which we are able to share the gospel, and that is through love of our neighbor, right, love of those and care for those that need it. And so, like our senior pastor, a great thing that he did was he commissioned our whole church to really gather as much PPE as possible. He thought it was easy to gather, but regardless of whether it was easy or hard, we were able to get it, right? And the church was amazing, and they didn't care about cost, right? We just got whatever we could, and we just started giving it out, right? Giving it to those people on our streets, whether it be masks, hand sanitizers, to those that just asked, right? And I think that's a great means of entering into a conversation of offering them hope, right? Why would you spend so much money and just give it away? Well, let me tell you, right? And so I think now, above all else, it's an opportunity to actually go out and take some risks, especially those who don't live with those that are who are high risk, or you're not high risk. Go out and take some risks. And feed the homeless, take care of the needy, safely, of course. But yeah, you guys can definitely do that. It's an opportunity if we're going down the practical route when it comes to discipleship and evangelism, and then have a testimony to share. The other example that I wanted to bring out, and this comes from the IMB, from the Southern Baptist Convention, but they did, using technology, they did the hashtag my story. And really what that is they recorded their testimony and just posted it up online, right? I think that's an amazing way of sharing the gospel, not knowing who is going to receive it, but someone's going to look at it, right? Someone's going to see it. And that's the beauty of technology. That's the beauty of what we've all been doing, live streaming our services. We posted on YouTube. I know our senior pastor, again, is huge on evangelism. And he says, our sermons on Sunday are being broadcasted all over the world. And we have more people watching these videos than we have in our congregation. And he knows that people are just sharing this content, sharing that, because it's easier now more than ever to get the message, the word of God out to other people that haven't heard. And he's even trying to find ways to send it to countries that have blocked, I can't specifically say what country, but we know, to block this content, right? And get it in the hands of people that need it more than ever. And it's as simple as someone looking at it on their phone, rather than risking, persecution. They can just look at their phone and listen to a very disciple-oriented, God-focused, pursuing Christ-focused message. And I think that's the amazing thing of technology. And so, yeah.
Yeah, maybe to narrow it down a little bit, what are you, especially just kind of even wanting to dive in a little bit into Andrew's expertise, so I want to lean into this a little bit. In terms of, as Asian Americans, what are some specific, Asian American Christians, what are some specific areas we can step into to fulfill the Great Commission? I never want to treat the Great Commission as a niche type of thing, but as Asian American Christians, we probably come with certain strengths and weaknesses. And so what are some things in terms of discipleship, overall discipleship? So making disciples obviously goes from taking someone who's not a follower of Jesus to becoming a follower of Jesus, and someone who's a follower of Jesus to continue to grow as a follower of Jesus. What are some things that maybe even in what you've been studying and observing, Andrew, that would be able to allow us as Asian American Christians see, like, oh, these are some things that we do very well, and here are some things that we need to watch out for?
Yeah, this is a tough one, but because I'm in a context where I'm not thinking as much in these terms as I had previously. But what I would say is, I think that if we're in the way you framed it was helpful for me, is that if we're talking about up in and out and a three-dimensional discipleship life, I would say, in my experience at least, the strength of Asian American discipleship is the in portion. There's just this built-in community. I don't know about you guys, but like I grew up in the church. I grew up in the Chinese American church, and my whole life, even through college, the way that I knew how to have relationship and friendship was through the church. So that was my family. That was my in. It was very strong. It was very cohesive. And there was a lot of trust and loyalty and intuitive understanding amongst one another. But I think the danger of that is it can become an echo chamber, and it can become insular and also self-serving. But my dream is for the Asian American church is for them to realize this strength, this gem of strong community, sense of family, and the many ways that you can leverage it for mission. I mean, I always go back to, what was it, John 13:34. This is how the world will know that you're my disciples, by your love for one another. Is it 10:34? One of those. And yeah, this is how the world will know that you're my disciples, by your love for one another. Our witness is our community. Our way of proclaiming the gospel is our love for one another, and love for one another is in abundance in the Asian American church that I have not seen in my time in Northeast Philly in an urban church, in my time in more multi-ethnic settings in San Ramon and Berkeley. The in and the sense of family that is there is extremely powerful, but I think unfortunately untapped for various reasons, both that we're responsible for and that are out of our control. But I would say that's a huge strength that I would love to see the Asian American church tap into, in terms of like showing people like, this is how you love one another. This is how you be together. This is how you do church together. Like, this is our whole life. And yeah, I'll stop there. But I think that's huge for me, leveraging that. And I guess I could be more practical, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think just some of the questions are, man, how, one, identifying that is a strength. I don't know if a lot of Asian American Christians realize that's a strength. And I think especially growing up in, I had a very similar situation like you, growing up primarily in a Chinese, immigrant Chinese setting for me, church. There is that strength of a strong bond in the community that probably is quite reflective of what we see in the gospel, the one another's, the all things in common type of passages. But even like kind of like how you mentioned, as we talk about the Great Commission and learn to what does it look like for us in time of shelter in place, we may be pretty good at following up with people within our church and caring deeply for people in our church. This is a great thing. It's not a bad thing at all. But it's kind of like what you mentioned. We probably have the strength is the inward. We might even have some strength in the upward, right? We're really great at the whole discipline and study and I guess even you can say piety, right? But our weakness is definitely the outward, which is probably why this question's asked, right? How do we do evangelism? Because maybe even if the person who's asking cannot, maybe not, does not realize this, the greatest weakness, generally that we might have as an Asian American church is that outward, due to maybe passivity. We don't like conflict or any sort of awkwardness. But
I think so how that strong community can be leveraged is through invitation into the community, which brings up those questions that you were just raising, like, oh, but will this be awkward? Or I'm unsure of how these people will fit into our already cohesive community where we've already figured out how everything works. And I think that should be cause for reflection on the kind of community that's being built. Like,
Mm,
is this a community that is a self-sustaining ecosystem, or is it a community always with open seats? And
mm,
how are we oriented around those open seats? And how are we preparing ourselves for when those open seats are filled?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. We probably went every which way with this question, maybe to try to summarize everything. Let's see if I can try to summarize what Andrew and just all of us we've been talking about. How do we continue to fill the Great Commission evangelism under this time of shelter in place? I think for us is recognizing the new areas that of opportunities that has due to shelter in place that really disrupted a lot of stuff that has opened up new areas. So maybe some very tangible examples are contact the person that you haven't talked to in a while. And don't think of evangelism as something that you have to do with a random stranger. Start with somebody you know or people you know. There's that um, are not necessarily, you can start with people that you know that aren't believers and just checking up on them, seeing how they're doing. You can reach out to people that we can call, I don't know, like those who are deconverted, right? That maybe you've known because they went to youth group with you or whatever it is, but just for one reason or another, stop practicing their faith or kind of just renounce their faith, whatever it may be. It might be a good opportunity to reach out to them. It could be your brother or sister in your church that's currently struggling or having a hard time, right? Making disciples means helping our weaker brothers and sisters as well. So there's like different facets in that regard. Also, it sounds like we talked a lot about recognizing our strength as for us, CFC Berkeley, as an Asian American church. That what does it look like for us to leverage our strength in maybe our ability in this vertical relationship with God, but also inviting others in growing in that the inward of building this community, but also being very self-reflective in looking at the community that we have built and what areas that we need to change or revise to make sure that it can be a place that we invite people into our community that either who do not know Christ or exploring faith, or even those who might be struggling, etc. That um, as uh, as tight knit as this community is, we want to be able to have open seats for people to be welcomed into that community as well. And I think, kind of like what we've been talking about, it is a great strength for our churches, especially Asian American churches, to be able to leverage that to show our neighbors and friends in the world that this is what Christ followers in community look like, instead of just talking about it. Any last thoughts from either of y'all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can say this. I think this is one of the greatest, even though we as Christians may find it challenging to continue the Great Commission as well as evangelize, I think this is one of the greatest times for us to evangelize because so many people are feeling hopeless when we have hope, right? James 3, right? 15, make sure that you have a defense and a reason for the hope that is in you, right? And so really this is a great opportunity to reach out to your non-believing friends and family members and to offer them hope, to check up on them and to tell them, things will be okay. Not in the way you think things will be okay, but it is okay because of Jesus Christ and his perfect plan. And we know the end of the story, regardless of what happens from now till then. And so, sharing the gospel is an awesome opportunity right now because people are looking for a message of hope. You hear so much especially in the secular world of divorce rates going up, suicide rates going up, depression going up, joblessness, everything in this world because of COVID-19 and shelter in place is leading people to hopelessness. And as Christians, we need to remind ourselves of that upward and inward relationship of hope, and then express that outward to people that need to hear it. And so, yeah, you just have to do it.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being with us. Just been a really encouraging time being able to talk about this and reflect a little bit even on our own lives, and feeling very convicted as well. Like, yeah, there's definitely people I can still reach out to and talk to during this time and not be so inward focused. Is there any way that our listeners can maybe reach out to you or hear more what you have to say? Anything that they can do to kind of just gain a little bit more insight about some of your thoughts?
Yeah, feel free to contact me on Facebook, Andrew Ong. My email is andrew@christchurcheastbay.org. Happy to just be in touch. Yeah, I love hanging out with you guys. You guys keep me rooted with my Asian American Christianity. I love it. It's very important.
And we're just so thankful to be able to do this with Andrew, as he is, pastoring in a local church in the Berkeley, Oakland area, very, very close to us. So it's just great to be able to partner and just continue to form partnerships with different churches that love Jesus like us. And as we continue to partner together to serve Berkeley and serve the East Bay and the Bay Area together for Christ. Thank you so much for being with us, Andrew.
Yeah.
And that's all the time we have for this week. So I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in and supporting this podcast. So if you have a question that you would like to be answered, we have lots of them. So I know a lot of you are probably submitted, and we're doing our best to pick questions that are relevant and where people would be able to discuss. And we have a lot of them. We read them all, so don't worry. If you do submit a question, we are reading them, and we would love to try to answer them. So if you have any questions, go ahead and submit it on our Google form, and join
Link
us.
Is below.
Link is
in
below.
The description.
And so we'll answer another one of your questions of faith and life. Love y'all.
Bye.